Parallels can be drawn between defense, US, and the cyber industry in terms of the insurance market and the way it is evolving, according to my guest. I'm Yvette Essen for CyberCube at the CyberCube Foresight Conference. The keynote speaker there has been Mike Rogers, member of the board for CyberCube, but also, importantly, Admiral Mike Rogers has been the former director of the National Security Agency and commander of the US Cyber Command. Can you tell me, first of all, as keynote speaker, what were some of the topics that you covered in the conference today?
So for me, I was trying to highlight the importance of insurance, the role I think the insurance industry can play in attempting to increase the level of cybersecurity, both within the private sector and at an individual level. I think that's an important role for the insurance arena. As a member of the CyberCube team, our focus, cyber risk analytics, to try to help the cyber insurance industry and the insurance industry writ large understand this domain. So that was important. I also try to highlight to people, look, as challenging as this is, remember, somewhere in the world, it's a man or a woman sitting in a keyboard that's doing all this. So that means there's thought, there's a rationale, there's a reason behind this activity. So if we can understand that, it helps us better position ourselves to deal with it, to defend against it.
So you mentioned one key word there, which was challenging, and you talked about how difficult it is, bearing in mind the risk is constantly changing. Why is it important then for the industry to partner with other industries? Why is it important for the insurance sector to forge relationships with different sectors?
Because in my experience, so you take that for what it's worth, but my experience having done this for several decades in the government is that no one entity has all the answers here. That the government can't fix this by themselves, the private sector can't do it alone, that the future is all about the power of partnerships. And I think there's an incredible opportunity between the public sector and the private sector. You look, for example, at the information, at the data that the insurance industry has access through their relationships with clients, for example. Insurance firms already maintain literally almost in some cases a century and a half of data about hurricane activity, seismology, fires, other natural occurrences. I think over time there's the potential to do the same in the cyber arena. And I think that becomes very important to see how we can create this idea of a partnership.
One thing you also talked about, which is obviously a key buzzword in the insurance sector, is probability, severity, and frequency. How is that applying in the insurance industry, and how does that draw parallels with what you've learned and experienced within the defense sector?
So I'm not an insurance professional, but my takeaway after dealing with the insurance arena in the last year or so in my new life outside of my own military experience is that insurance is all about trying to understand probability. What level of risk are they as a carrier going to carry? And how do you price that risk? So before you can develop a price, you need to understand what's the probability of an event occurring, what's the frequency, how often might this occur? Am I dealing with a once-in-a-century phenomena? Am I dealing with something that's likely to occur once in a decade? Am I dealing with something that has a probability of occurring multiple times in a month, multiple times in a week? So probability. The second thing you tend to focus on, frequency, so how often, and then lastly, severity. So if it were to occur at that frequency that you think, what would the impact be? What would the cost of reconstitution be? We've got literally a century and a half of experience in reconstruction after hurricanes. Take NotPetya, the most significant cyber event we've probably experienced around the world, June of 2017. How do you predict what the cost of a NotPetya event is? So we're all trying to come to grips with how do we understand probability, frequency, and severity.
And you reflected in particular with regards to nuclear, why that was important, bearing in mind all these different factors.
Well, I was just trying to highlight, look, you need to take a risk-based approach to this. And there are some areas where, quite frankly, if you're a business, you can take a measure of risk. If I were to lose this capability, I could deal with it. It doesn't necessarily impact my ability to actually execute or deliver whatever the outcome of my company is, whether it's a good, whether it's a product, whether it's a service. On the other hand, there are some areas, whether it be for a business or a government, you cannot afford to take any loss or disruption. So the example I use in the U.S. government, we came to the conclusion we could not afford to take any loss or disruption in the nuclear arena. That had to be secure, no penetrations, no no ability of anyone to attempt to manipulate anything associated with the nuclear arena for us. So we then used our resources based on that, the fact that, hey, look, we can't afford anything to happen here.
Now, we're at the Foresight conference, so let's look forward. You'd also touched upon the Internet of Things, about the way the market is becoming increasingly interactive. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
So, like most things in life, it's a bit of both. On the positive side, it offers amazing productivity, increased speed, greater efficiency, the ability to do a whole host of things remotely that we never could do before. It will make our lives easier. Those are all good, positive things. It's going to speed and power greater economic activity. But there's also a flip side to this. That connectivity, that interconnectivity, means that the attack surface, if you're an attacker, your attack surface or the ability or the areas or options you have to potentially penetrate networks or systems is increasing as a result of that interconnectivity. Because now it's not just, let's say, a business network. It's, well, what does that business network connect to? We're going to experience the same thing in our personal lives. It won't be just our home computer systems. It'll be phones, it'll be the heating systems that we are remotely controlling. Hey, I want the temperature to rise so that when I come home, the house is heated at a level that because I'm in the house, as opposed to during the day I'm at work, temperature's lower, no one's there, I'm not going to spend money to heat an empty home. So those all represent potential, vulnerabilities or attack surfaces for an opponent.
Mike, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Yvette.
For CyberCube at the Foresight Conference in London, I'm Yvette Essen.